How do you go from cleaning up shingle trash to building a $13 million roofing business? For Joe Ayler, it started with a leap of faith and a relentless focus on customer experience. In this episode, we dive deep into the journey of Tar Heel Construction Group, from its bootstrap beginnings to its transformation into a trusted community brand. Joe Ayler, founder of Tar Heel Construction Group, took his background in medical research and turned it into a thriving roofing business that's synonymous with quality and trust in Maryland. What makes Joe stand out is his commitment to doing the right thing, even when mistakes happen. His mantra, "We don't always get it right, but we always make it right," has shaped his company's culture. Get ready to learn how focusing on customer experience and team empowerment can take your business to the next level. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Roofing Success Podcast. I'm Jim Aline, and I'm here to bring you insights from top leaders in the roofing industry to help you grow and scale your roofing business. Joe Ayler, it's good to see you, brother. Tar Heel Roofing and Construction, or Construction Services. What do you guys? What's the subheading there? It started as construction, right? Construction Group. That's right. Construction Group.
You got it.
Awesome, brother. I remember our conversation in 2021, and you said something what I felt was prolific. And you pointed up at that same yard sign that's behind you right now. And you said, this is what I'm doing. Like, this is what I do it for, man. This is what it's all about. I'm protecting this at all costs. And I see you got the new hat on with the super cool, like I'm at a superhero style logo going on. And you know, things change and businesses progress. So I really wanted to get you back on here. For people that haven't listened back to those early episodes, you know, tell us a little bit about Tar Heel and your story.
Yeah, so we're celebrating 10 years in business, but the 10 years prior to the inception of Tar Heel, we were a subcontractor for many years. Switched industries. I used to be in the medical research kind of space right out of college. Spent some time at Johns Hopkins University in a medical research facility, and wasn't my calling. Moved back up to my hometown. Reached out to a buddy of mine and said, "Hey man, I'm broke. I need some work." He said, "You can start Monday with a roofing company I'm working for, and you'll be cleaning up shingle trash." So left Johns Hopkins to clean shingle trash up, and my family was scratching their head. But now they're singing a little bit of a different tune now. So no, but we worked as a subcontractor for many years, and eventually, like I told you before we hit record, you know, wanted to, you know, make a name for ourselves, and you know, eventually got tired of other contractors taking credit for the work that we were performing, and started Tar Heel Construction Group in 2014. And yeah, you know, started out, you know, with, you know, my sister-in-law, you know, in a little office in her house, and was doing most of the selling and purchasing of materials, managing of projects, invoicing, kind of quality assurance and all that stuff. And back then, you know, obviously we started out from nothing and have grown 10 years from zero to about 13 million revenue. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. One of the things that I wanted to discuss with you, because I think you have great perspective on it, coming from the subcontractor side, starting the business, bootstrapping, right? Like just grinding it out to a $13 million business is what advice can you give people on adapting to the changes of business at throughout those stages?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know if that's an acquired skill or not. I mean, it's a little bit of awareness, right? It's a little bit of confidence and not to be, you know, not to be fearful of making decisions, right? You've got to be decisive. You've got to kind of listen to your business and and be aware of the needs of your business as you grow, right? If you're starting to, one person can only sell, in the residential space, $3 million a year. So, if you start to, if your calendar becomes overwhelmed and you can't get back to your customers in a timely fashion, then hey, maybe you should hire a salesperson. If you can't get your proposals out in time, or you can't balance your books, or your bank account's a mess, maybe you need to hire another, office admin. So I think awareness and always keeping, the customer experience kind of at the forefront of kind of like your mission, right? If your customers aren't experiencing positivity, from lead generation to, to job execution to invoicing, you got to be able to be aware of the things that are lacking in your business, and then not be fearful of making those hires. And not being fearful of making a hire means you've got to manage your money properly, because if you do have proper lines of credit and you are profitable and you are good at managing cash flow, right, you shouldn't be afraid of making that hire and delegating off some of those responsibilities as you recognize some growth.
I think that's an aha moment. I love the way you frame that in terms, maybe in just to paraphrase it a little bit, of like, if you can look through the lens of customer experience and build your business through that lens, that's a powerful way to build your business.
I think,
Like, if there's a lack in the sales process, if there's a lack on the production side, if your customers aren't happy, if there's a lack of customer experience on, through the cleanup process, or, anything that everything can be looked at maybe through that lens of customer experience. In those early days, maybe you didn't have that strategic aspect of it, right? Like, a lot of this stuff comes with time and, 10 years of reflecting and, that the evolution of yourself through those years. But in those early days, what were some of the milestone times of your business, and what were the difficulties that you found at those stages?
Some of I guess one of the big milestones was, when I didn't have to sell anymore.
Mm.
Right. So one man or woman, and a part-time kind of admin, whether it's a family member or a husband or a wife, or or whatever it is. I mean, you can get to 3 million on your own. If you're good at sales, and you got but I mean, you're doing everything. I mean, you're sourcing the leads, you're selling the work, you're ordering the materials, you're managing the job. You're running punch out, you're running quality assurance. And then, pretty much you've got somebody in the office that's making sure that, they're sending the invoice out, getting paid, collecting the money, and getting it in a bank account, But one of my first aha moments was, when I was able to stop selling, right? And then one of the challenges around that was when I said to myself, well, hey, now that, I'm not selling anymore and I'm hiring people now, I've got to train these people. And that was kind of like a new challenge where I was like, oh my God, like, I'm going to hire somebody, but how do I teach them, my ways, right? Because some of the people that we've hired over the years have industry experience and others don't, right? And the ones that don't, you've got to hire, or you've got to train, right? So I would say the first aha moment was when I, at the end of the year, I was like, look, we did whatever, 7 million, whatever it was, and I didn't, and my goal was to sell $0 so I could start to focus on working on the business and not in the business.
That's a big moment. Like, for a lot of like, to get to that point where, because then it is, and it made me think, when did you realize it was a business and not, you know what I mean? Like, if that's a good question, because it's like, in the beginning, to me, in the beginning of business, it's like, it's your you're doing this so you can have a job, right? And develop and have a source of income. You guys were subcontractors. You were making money that way, but then you're like, oh, well, we could do the rest of it too. Like, let's go and capture some of that aspect of the business. When did you realize, man, this is a business? Like, I got something here. It's bigger than me.
Yeah, well, that's funny you asked that, Jim, because there was a definitive moment where, and I can't remember the scenario or the situation, but I can remember the conversation that I had with our controller, who's my sister-in-law. She runs our finance and HR, and it could have been a human resources issue or a quality assurance issue or a reputation issue. Something was happening, and I was walking down the hall and going into her office, and she was coming out of the break room, and we had a quick little conversation. And she looks at me and she says, "Joe, this isn't just you and Scott, horsing around on a roof, and you're selling a couple of jobs here and there. This is a company, and you're providing a service, and you have a reputation." That was kind of an aha moment for me, but it kind of develops over time, right? We really made a point to, really get involved in our community over the years and really just be an important part of this small little market here in Hartford County, Maryland. And just through consistency and through transparency and servicing our work and performing quality installations and staying involved with the community and just steady as she goes, just steady. We've created a local brand that people can trust. And now, we're a representative of our community. Right. It happens slowly, but definitely that aha moment in the hallway right now where we were facing a human resources challenge, and she stops me and says, "Look, man, this is a company. You're running a company now."
It's crazy. It's like from the beginning stages, it's like, how did this happen sometimes, right? Like, how did this was just a couple guys goofing around on the roof, right? Like what you said, right? Like, and now you're a part of the local community. You have people that rely on you. It's a really cool thing if you get to accomplish it. In that involvement in the local community, have you guys had any times where you faced challenges like in maintaining your reputation, and how did you solve those problems?
I think all roofing contractors we've all made the same kind of mistakes, right? And the kind of mantra or core value that we kind of strive, and has been ingrained into our team is that we don't get it right every single time, but we make it right every single time. And we live by that shit. Have we put the wrong color on the house? Yes, we have. Have we had guys fall through the roof into somebody's living room? Yes, we have. Have we been torn off and down to bare plywood and had a thunderstorm pop up right over top of a house and dump $25,000 worth of damage in somebody's $1 million house? Yes, we have. And most companies do, because this is what happens in roofing, right? Does this happen all the time? No. But does stuff like this happen in the industry when you're in it for 20 years, right? But what I've learned is to stay calm and to make it right, and it is what it is. If you put the wrong color on for whatever reason, right? That happened many years ago in our early years. We've kind of figured out how not to make that happen nowadays, but do you make it right? And that's kind of what we live by.
I think that how do you not plan for it, but how do you protect your company against the inevitable issues that arise?
My processes and procedure, right? Predictability. right, is kind of the by the book answer. But the my intuitive answer is just it's going to happen. Just make it right. Now your problem is that you don't want to start to experience the same problem over and over again, right?
Yeah.
You're not fixing your problem, but um, that's why we do our quarterly leadership meetings. We have meeting structure, right? We identify, discuss, and solve issues as they pop up. And we're constantly refining our processes and working towards just getting better every day. I mean, when you've been in business, as long as we have, and we haven't been in business a super long time, but kind of long enough where it's like, if you're in 10 years in business, you're doing something right. And as long as you're continually improving and, identifying mistakes and fixing them, stuff's going to happen. But, you do, like you said earlier, if you're staying focused on the customer experience and putting on good roofs,
Yeah.
those are the two main boxes that you got to check. Because you can do one without the other. You can have a wonderful customer experience and put on a shitty roof, and you can put on a great roof and have a terrible customer experience. But that's those are the two main boxes that you got to check, and then there's a whole list of other boxes that you got to check as you kind of get more mature and grown in business.
It's so great. Like, it's so crazy that like the list never goes away, right? It's just a new list, and you get to solve different problems versus the problems that you solved before. I don't know. I think do you think that you have to fall in love with the problem solving? Is that part of, or in a way?
Yeah, I mean, like we said earlier before we started recording, I mean, the problems and challenges and enjoyment and just all it changes from when you're 0 to 3 million, from when you're 3 to 6, from when you're 6 to 9, from your whatever 10 million and up. Your business experiences new challenges, right? And you're always going to have something to work on. But the good thing is that as you start to become more trusting and more mature in business and understand how to delegate responsibility and refine processes and procedure and departmental management and kind of all the things as your business gets bigger, it does get a little easier. But you have a lot more to lose, right? And like I said before, if you're focused on the customer experience and you keep that kind of in mind, where you're only as good as your last roof, I think that those are kind of some of the little tidbits that I keep in my mind as we continue to grow. And you just stay humble, and no matter how long you're doing it, you're out there to put good roofs on, and to create a good experience for the customer. And you can a company that's 10 years in business, 15 million in revenue, they can put on a bad roof, and I look at bad experiences like a cancer cell, right? You want to eradicate immediately, right? You want to mitigate and you want to fix right away, because you don't want a bad community sentiment, to kind of grow, right? Because that's what we've learned over the years, is that our customer referrals, and our positive customer experiences compound into more opportunities. But like they say, good news travels fast, but bad news travels much faster. And you can spend years building a reputation of honesty and dependability and quality workmanship, but your reputation can get torn down exponentially quicker than it took you to build up the reputation.
Yeah, a couple of missed payments to suppliers and jobs not getting done, and pretty soon pretty soon you're on the evening news, and it's unfortunate that it happens in that way for people. how do you look at profitability in through that lens? Because you know that mistakes are going to happen. Like, do you make sure that you're priced that you're pricing jobs in a way that you can manage those issues as they come along?
You mean do we budget for mistakes?
I mean, I guess an easier way to put it is, do you make sure that you have enough margin in your jobs to screw up, right? Like,
Yeah,
not that you want to screw up, but for the times that you do.
yeah. I mean, early on when we were a smaller contractor, I think a lot of these guys don't track profitability because I mean
Yeah.
you're spinning all the plates, but to have proper expense reporting on jobs is very, very valuable, right? Because you want to know, how much money you're making on each job. You want to know what your operating expenses are and what your job expenses are. And it's hard for a lot of smaller contractors to track, to have that kind of financial clarity and that financial kind of acumen, So one thing we did early was, we made sure that, we managed our cash flow well, and in the very early days, hey man, if if I have more income than I do expenses at the end of the month, then we're living another month, right? But I remember one year, this was very early on,
Yeah.
where I'm literally going up to the supply house. I have a checkbook in my pocket. I'm cutting the check, and we got to the end of the year, and we had a balance with the supply house, and we had completed all of our jobs, and we didn't have enough money, right? Because we just weren't that sophisticated, right? And if some of these younger contractors can learn to um, just track their revenue, even if you're just writing it on a piece of paper, right? If you're not in the position to get QuickBooks or have a bookkeeper and all that stuff, just write it down. But that was the one saving grace for us early, is we always made sure we managed our cash flow well, and that also it gave me courage, right, to hire and to
Yeah.
and to continue to grow, because I never had to worry about us not having money. And then when you manage your money the right way early on, and then you hire your first bookkeeper, and then you get QuickBooks going, and then you get a CRM, and then you're starting to track stuff, and it's starting to make a little bit of sense, and you can show a local bank, some historical revenue, and then you get your first line of credit, and then and I'm talking about a line of credit with a local bank, right? Some working capital. And then it kind of starts to come together, and then you start drilling down and sanding down the rough edges, and we're still sanding, after all these years,
Yeah.
and still getting better. So it's a wild ride. But to what you said, to your point earlier, you get to this point, and I'll meet somebody or talk to somebody, and they'll say, "Well, how'd you get to the point where you're at right now?" And then you look, and you're just like, I don't know, man.
I don't know. I just continued to work on it. That's a lot of times, man. I think that we don't give ourselves enough grace over time. We want things to happen a lot faster than they do. And maybe we just haven't, we didn't learn the personal lessons that we needed to get to that next level. In those early days, were there ever times that you had to sacrifice personal cash flow for business cash flow?
Well, in that, yeah. So in that instance, Jim, when I got to the end of the year, and we weren't able to cover our position with our local supply house, I had to take out an SBA loan, for $75,000, right? So I took out an SBA loan for $75,000, and luckily I had my shit together on my personal side, where I was able to, produce some collateral and show them, the proper documentation in order to get an SBA loan. So I think at that point, I mean, we might have owed the supply house 30,000, right, or something like that. So I took out a loan for 75,000. I had $40,000 worth of working capital, and then we had a great year that year, right? We did a couple million that year, and at that point we were maybe, I don't know, maybe a $2-3 million a year contractor, and we were able to pay off that SBA loan and then learn a lesson, right? A valuable lesson learned. That we're going to have to do a better job at managing our cash flow and understanding our profitability as a company. But like they say, man, the youth is wasted on the young. You can tell a lot of this stuff to a young contractor, and you're just not going to get it
Yeah.
until you're a couple years older.
It takes time. Like it, and that like you have a certain vision at a different, you have blinders up in certain ways. And I'm sure that there's blinders up at 13 million, right? Where there's things that you don't see. But I love, that's what I love doing this show for, is because I've heard so many times that this opened my eyes to that, right? Like, oh man, I never thought of something that way. And so it's awesome that you come on here and share that type of stuff, and the struggles too, because that's what, we're in a, there's a little bit of ego in this business sometimes. And it's like, look, man, we're at 13 million. We got our, like we did it right. And it's like, well, yeah, but boy, there's no one that hasn't had struggles along the way. You know what I mean? Like it's not a part of business. So, how have you developed your key people, and how do you look at it now, looking back, of how maybe you would have done something different? Like how you developed your team at these different stages, and where we're like, maybe man, I wish I hired in this capacity sooner, or maybe I should have waited for that production manager. I didn't really need him at this stage, but how did your hiring of those key people along the way to make it a business, not just Joe and your partner?
Jim, I don't know if I have a good answer for that.
Yeah.
In the 10 years in business, I've only had one person leave me. And obviously, we've had to fire a couple people over the years, but I've only had one person voluntarily come to me with a resignation letter and leave me in 10 years. And we're around 20 W-2 employees. But I don't know. I don't know, Jim. That's a tough one, man. I mean, we aren't a corporation, right? So we don't hire and manage and have a human resources department. We don't have a training department, right? This is kind of like, one thing we have done over the years is we've always hired from within. Everybody that we've hired over the years is a friend of the family, is a guy we went to high school with, is a guy from around the way that we knew, is a subcontractor's cousin's wife, or something like that, where we've done a good job of establishing a good reputation in our local market of it being a good place to work with good people, right? And when you establish a good reputation, then you become magnetic, right? And we've just been fortunate over the years to just attract just good talent, right? Good people, right? And that want to work for a good company, and we've placed them in positions and then give them autonomy to make it their own, right? And we've been lucky for that not to backfire on us, because do we have all the right people in the right places? Probably not. We're not 100% hitting the bullseye there, but but we're always striving to get better, and we're empowering our people to make the position their own. We give them autonomy. We let them self-govern, the position. We just provide a job description. We provide core values in our mission, and standard operating procedures on how to execute the position, place trust, and then, and then execute, right? And the proof is always in the pudding. If we hire a new project manager, then the feedback is going to come back from the crews and come back from the operations side. If we hire a new office staff, right, and there's some challenges there, I'll get some feedback there. So, maybe not the best answer, but that's the best I can do.
No, but that speaks to culture, and like the culture regulates itself at a certain point in time, right? Like how you're saying, if you brought in the wrong person, it would be felt right away, if that makes sense. And maybe that's happened or not happened too often, which is fortunate that it doesn't happen too often, but I bet that it would be felt right away. Like, yeah, this isn't one of us. You know what I mean? Like, they're not. Yeah.
And
that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we've gotten better at hiring over the years. I mean, that's another thing we learned. That's another thing that I've learned. I mean, I did a lot of the hiring early on, but now what I'm learning is that I'm delegating the hiring out, because Jamie and Michael, who's on our sales side, he's our leader, right? Our sales leader. He's been with me for, 16, 17 years. I missed on 2 hires, so they came to me and said, look, Joe, the last 2 guys that you hired, haven't worked out. Why don't you let us do the hiring? That was the music to my ears. I said, look, that's great. I said, I'd love for you to take on that responsibility. Because I'm not good at doing everything,
That's right.
But
that's self-realization, right? That, like, understanding, like, man, I think a lot of business owners find it challenging to not be the everything in their business. And it's really healthy when you're able to give your people that autonomy and to give them the control.
Right? It's
empowerment, big time.
If you go to somebody and say, "Look, man, I trust you to get this done, and I'm depending on you, and this is important," people love that, man. They said people in our company, they love it, right? They love it. They absolutely eat it up, to depend on somebody and to place trust in them. I depend on you and I trust you to get this done, right? And there's some times where, there's some challenges with execution, right? And then you've got to be a good kind of leader and manager and all that stuff. But it's worked out in our favor to kind of operate the company this way.
Yeah, for sure. And I think hiring is a skill set that a lot of, like, entrepreneurial business owners, small business owners don't even think of. Like, I didn't personally. I was like, I thought HR was dumb because I was never a corporate person, right? So I'm like, why are we asking questions about strengths and weaknesses? And I'm reading resumes or like how you should write your resume. And I'm like, this is fluff. This isn't real. It's not, so to me, it didn't connect. But then if you actually kind of get into more of the science side of it, you're like, wow. Oh, okay. That's why you asked that question. Now I get the process there. But it's just the lack of skill set in yourself that, you just don't understand. And I think a lot of times, I don't know if you had this happen, but I've been talking about this a lot lately, is sometimes early on, you just need a body. You just need somebody. And, it's like, well, that person's there and they need work. So I'll put them on the payroll, and it's more challenging there. How, like, now that they have turned over hiring, I think that they're a little bit closer to the role, I would assume also, right? So if he's your sales leader and he's hiring a salesperson, man, that's probably a really cool relationship for him, because he gets to be more involved in that, in that filtering process. That's empowerment, because he has to work with them, right? If Joe hands this guy over to him, it's different.
And Jamie and Mike, the 2 individuals I was mentioning, they're part of my leadership team, right? So
yeah.
So they've helped me grow the business from very early on, and I agree with you about the science behind personality profiling and stuff like that. I thought it was a bunch of horse shit, a couple of years ago, and read Surrounded by Idiots and uh, some other people. A good friend of mine, Kyle
Yeah.
Hoffman, we always chat on the disc profile stuff, and it does provide a little bit of clarity when hiring for sure. Do we live and die on that disc sword? No, because I still believe, that a lot of these people a lot of the candidates will tell you what they want, what you want to hear. But I still firmly believe you're never really going to understand how somebody operates within your company until about 6 months. Then you're
Yeah.
really going to get the true colors. But the Surrounded by Idiots is a great book. I love the title. I love the play on words there. And, I've learned about myself reading that book. I'm definitely a high yellow, with a splash of red, and all the book lovers out there will know exactly what I'm talking about. But, and then you start to read the different profiles and you're like, oh, well, that's Jim. That's my mother,
Mm-hmm.
or that's, my friend Wayne, or whoever it is. But the hiring was tough. And you're right. We've been in situations where we just needed a body, and we've hired
Yeah.
quick, and we got burned a couple times, but that's a tough one. And to your point, earlier, as you grow in business, and especially when you start to get up to some higher revenue numbers and you start to experience the needs of the business, like, hey, we need to be really careful hiring people. Or, hey, now we need a chief marketing officer because our marketing budget is over $700,000, and I don't have the time to manage that anymore properly. Or, hey, we've been on cash basis for, whatever, the first 6 years up to 7 million. And now I'm realizing through the growth and maturity that I've experienced in business that, hey, we really need to be on full accrual to be able to understand the true operational profitability of the company at any time during the year. And these things that you learn. And one thing I've gotten pretty good at over the years is just being able to release responsibility. And I'm not good at
Mm.
everything. I don't want to be good at everything. What I want to be good at is leading the company and providing a safe, sustainable, and respectable workplace for my employees, and establishing a reputation of being proud of who we are and the services and products we provide. And that's kind of what our mission, right, and what my role is, right, as we've grown.
What has helped you get there?
I think I have another saying on my board: healthy leader, healthy team, right? And I've really focused on being, a good father, a good husband, being trustworthy, accountable. My word is my bond. These kind of core values that, not only make me good professionally, but they make me good personally. You know, Being a good person and being a good friend and being financially responsible and taking care of your employees and just all the things, right? There's a lot of things that have helped me, get to the point where I am today. But, you know, really, keeping a close circle of friends, making sure that I'm financially, responsible to my family and my company, right? Making sure that I'm, staying in tune with my faith, making sure that I'm in shape and I'm eating right. All those things help me be the best person that I can be personally. And if I'm the best person that I can be personally, then I'm going to lead my company better.
That's I think that's a lesson to be learned for a lot of people, and you'll see it in a lot of great leaders in not just in the roofing industry, but in a lot of places that it starts with you. Boy, your habits will travel fast. You're like, if you are, if you have bad habits, your team's going to have those bad habits too. and maybe you want that culture, right? Like some people want that culture, but I don't know if that culture is something that lasts the through time, right? What about building your brand? I want to, like, we talked about that in the first episode to a point, and now you have you got full time. Did you say CMO, like a chief marketing officer for the company? Like, you're really, like, the levels that you've attained in marketing, like having a $700,000 marketing budget. What are your thoughts around making sure that Tar Heel is represented in the marketplace properly from a marketing perspective, that you're in front of enough people to get enough business? How do you guys think about your marketing efforts?
Well, I mean, and we've just gone through, all of this the last month or two with our
Yeah.
strategic planning and all that stuff. So you've got your paid channels, right? You've got your Google ads, you've got your Facebook ads, you've got your print media, and other paid avenues in which you receive leads, right? Some other less than reputable ones. But anyway, you're paying for leads, right? And then you've got your we've got a budget where we spend money on local activities, right? Whether it's a local golf tournament or youth sports programs or local parades or local events or supporting another business at a local bull and oyster roast, and just all these marketing and advertising channels and strategies that aren't necessarily quantifiable, right? If you put a billboard on the side, because we kind of straddle the 95 corridor, right? One of the busiest roads in America, if not the world, and we'll run billboards on that busy road. And do we expect people to call and say, hey, I need a roof, I saw your billboard on 95? So that's some local branding, right? And then being intentional and aware of the content that you put out, right? And where you put it out. We've got some local guys that get on roofs and they're in capes and screaming around, and you get a roof, with their WWE belts, and look, that's their strategy, right? We are very brand conscious and just aware. We put out some fun pieces, right? But we always try to protect our reputation that this is a serious company and we're in the business of putting good roofs on. Now, do we have good people and do we have fun? Yes, but our reputation is always top of mind. And maybe running on a little bit here, but I mean, there's two kind of categories of our budget, and that's what we call branding, and then and then paid sources, right? And that community involvement, the parades, the sports teams, the bull and oyster roast, the local chamber, giving away roofs to the nonprofits, steady drip on your social media feeds, and sitting on a couple local boards, right? Yes, I sit on the Greater Maryland Better Business Bureau board of directors, right? So I've sat on that board for a couple of years. I sit on 2 foundation boards here in Harford County, Maryland. Get involved in your community. When you go into the local shopping or the local grocery stores here, we've got branding on there. We've got billboards. We've got trucks going around town. We've got jobs being done. We've got Facebook ads and Google ads. And, we have networks and know a lot of people around the community. And then when you see people, you say, man, I see Tar Heel everywhere. It's because we are everywhere, and you have to be everywhere. Right. You have to be everywhere to build a brand, and you have to be everywhere consistently for years and years and years to build a brand, because when you build a brand, it's based on consistency, right? And I don't know if there's bad brands out there, because I don't know if you can build a bad brand. Like I'm kind of just talking on.
No, that's a good thought process, because it's hard. Like it won't be lasting. I had a branding expert on one time, and he made a great comment though. He said, "You have a brand whether you know it or not." So if you pull up in front of that house in a rusty F-150 with a magnet slapped on the side, your brand says you can negotiate with me, right? Like, so there could be, not just from a lead generation perspective. From a lead generation perspective, I think you're right on point there. You can't build a bad brand because that brand you won't be around long enough. But your brand is even more than that, right? Like, it's more than just them seeing the billboard, seeing you at the events, seeing you there. It's like you said, it's the professionalism. I think you mentioned it earlier, like the professionalism and the, that your team is, you have high quality people, that there's a quality conversation happening. If you have a conversation with someone, all of that is brand. How have you guys, I know you're just getting into this.
That's why they say, reputation is currency. Right.
That's right.
And your network is your net worth. That's why
That's right.
You know as many people in your market as possible, and you build that reputation up, because what will happen is when you build a brand with a quality reputation, then your people are proud to work there. And then that's how you establish culture, and you establish employee retention and pride. And all that stuff starts to bubble and compound. And then you come into the Baltimore market and you say, who's the most reputable roofing contractor in the Baltimore metropolitan? And we'd be in the conversation for sure.
In the conversation, yeah.
And then this is a big market, so there's a couple very, generationally present businesses, right, that have great reputations. But for sure, yeah.
And that's all part of it. Like, it is, and there's, it's such that, I guess, to the market size thing, you have to have that abundance mentality to a point, right? Like, there's going to be other competitors in the market, but I think you'll go through levels of competition, right? That company, when you were getting started, that, 30, 50, some, like, I don't know, some of the who's in Baltimore, that's maybe 100 million plus, like, they're, those a lot of times aren't even your competition when you're a smaller, but then as you get through these stages, right, like, the other smaller companies are your competition, right? And then there's these different phases of it. But there's that other phrase, best known beats best, right? But if you can combine the two, man, and I think here's what I love about our conversations is that, like, I always feel with you, it's just intention. Like, you have a sincere intention to do the best thing for your customer, create a quality experience. And I feel that same intention with your team. And when you have that intention, the contract, we're over episode 230 now. You were on like 30 something, 39 or something like that when we first spoke. But it's to me, it's the contractors that have that just take care of their people, their customers to the highest level. That's that 80-20 rule, right? Like, there's the Pareto's principle in everything, right? Like, where you're spending your Google Ads dollars and all of that, that might be the 20%, but it's the 80% is that you're taking care of your customers and you're taking care of your people. And that's where,
it's the bullshit meter,
yeah.
And a lot of the times when you're selling these home improvements, a lot of the customers don't want to know about the elements of a roofing system. They want to trust the company and the salesperson, and they want to know, hey, I'm not dealing with a bullshitter. This guy is honest. He's transparent. He's trustworthy. His company has a great reputation, and I want to use this company. Now, if we're $2,000 higher than another company, starting out with trust is where we want to be, because we can negotiate to get work, right? We've got our profit margins that we want to hit and where we want to be and all that stuff. But in order to dominate our market, we need to put more roofs on, right? Because, all the paid channels and all. Nobody's going to have a bigger impact on your brand than your happy customers. And what makes a company like ours tough to beat, we've got over 15,000 satisfied customers in a very small, 15 to 20 mile radius here in the northeastern portion of Maryland. And that compounds because the happy customers produce more happy customers that produce more happy customers. But you're right. When we're going in and selling work, the reason our team has such a high closing ratio is because of our reputation.
Yeah.
Because when they go in to sell a home improvement, the ball's already teed up. These guys just have to put a decent swing on it, and it starts out just like you said, Jim, with just having these core values and, just customer experience focused, just telling the truth, and just being a good person and just being you, right? Because the one interesting thing about Surrounded by Idiots was that if you get really good at reading people, then you're going to adjust who you are to adapt to the person that you think that they are. And then you'll never be your true self. Right. So it's like, if I know Jim's a high yellow and I'm a blue and I know that he's a yellow, then I'm going to adjust how I deliver this conversation to Jim based on who I think he is instead of just being myself. But the reason that I was so successful when I was selling was because I was just real, and I wasn't real because it was a strategy. They just knew that, hey, this guy Joey's a good dude. He seems transparent, right? He seems like he's telling the truth, and I trust this guy. And then when you follow up on that, when that customer has that intention or that intuition that, hey, this guy's a good guy, and then you follow through on it, and then you get that kind of reassurance, loop right there, then then things compound and you're off to the races.
Yeah, that it's doing the right thing, right? And there's going to be times in your business where you have to struggle with that. I think not all the time, but like if you're in that position, like you were in years ago, where you were, with the $75,000 to the supply house and things like that. There's you were in a position where you could go and get the loan and go after it. Where there's a lot of other people that have to make decisions on skimping out on some things until they feed that, get that back or whatever it is. And so make the right choices, right? Make the right choices. They'll come out better in the end for sure. And you get to sleep at night, which is nice. Sleep is good. It's healthy.
Like what I said earlier, some of the younger contractors, I mean, look, we're doing this to make money. Right.
That's right.
But like I told you earlier, when you reach a level of success and you get comfortable, then you realize it was never about the money. And, which is a lesson that unfortunately you won't learn until you get older. But, another kind of mantra that we live by, we don't deny the fact that we're in this to do money. We are a for-profit construction company trying to make money. Right. But the more money we make, the more money we give back to our local community. And the more money that we give back to our local community, the more trust we create, right? The more trust we create, the more roofs they buy and the more likable that we are. The more roofs that, or the more trust that we create, the more likable we are. The more roofs they buy, the more money we make, the more money we make, the more money we give, the more money we give, the more trust and likable we are, the more roofs they buy. And it's this kind of healthy kind of cycle just based on being a good person and doing good work.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the cycle that you want to be on. What trends or shifts do you see? We talked about it before we on camera, like a lot of shifts going on in the roofing industry and things like that. Like, what are you seeing in terms of shifts, and how are you preparing for them?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple obvious ones, right? I mean, we've got the solar, right? Solar is happening, right? And it's going to happen. They've got the energy shingles, right? The different manufacturers are, I know CertainTeed's got a product, GAF's got an energy shingle product, right? So that's definitely changing and will continue to change over the next couple of years. I know that the federal ITC tax credit is 30%, but you know, let's say it goes up to 40%, goes up to 50%, then all of a sudden, if you're not doing solar, and I was never a big solar fan, and we do energy shingles through GAF, right? So we've gone through the GAF training to put on the Timberline energy shingle. And, so solar's, changing, right? Latinos, right? Latinos are putting these roofs on. There's not American people putting roofs on anymore. So once we start to see second and third generation Latinos starting to own roofing companies, American owned roofing companies could be in trouble. Because first generation Latinos, maybe not super sophisticated with American culture, but second generation Latinos are understanding how to run businesses. They're understanding, obviously, the advantages of being bilingual. They're paying their taxes. They're owning homes. That could start to change the cultural shift inside of roofing as well. So we've got solar, we've got Latinos operating businesses. Obviously, we've got private equity, right, entering the roofing industry. What is that going to look like as they start to roll up companies and create efficiencies in purchasing and 401k group health benefits? Technology, software, is that going to increase the price point in local markets? Is it going to decrease the price point in local markets? Are Americans going to still want to buy, locally owned, right? Locally owned. No, I'm not owned by a corporation. I'm not owned by private equity. Tar Heel Construction Group is a private, locally owned business. What does that look like, right, as things start to change, and the wealth gap and the disparity between the haves and the have-nots start to change, where all the roofing companies in America, all the profits go up to Morgan Stanley or BlackRock or Goldman Sachs, and all the roofing company owners is where they're still they still retain their names, but they're not keeping any of the profits. Because they sold out, to whoever, whatever you want to call them, right? So solar, Latinos, PE, those are the big three that kind of come to mind. There's, I would say the introduction and the maturation of technology and software and roofing. Right. I think that with the generational changes, with instant quoting tools and, a lot of the advances in technology that they're trying to get rid of us, salespeople, but I still do think people want to connect with people and people want to be a part of a community of people. Right. I don't think that's ever going to go away. People in a Discord channel sitting behind computers, you can call that a community, right? But I've seen a lot of relationships get compromised because they built the relationship over, online behind a computer screen, but never got a chance to really talk to the person. So, but I don't want to digress, right? So solar, Latinos, PE, and the progression and exponential maturation of technology and software and roofing.
So what happens, Joe? What happens to Tar Heel through that maturation? Do you just continue to look at the next problem and try to solve it? Or is there okay, we know we have solar, we let's see where PE lands. Where are you feeling about these things?
The solar, we're there, right? We're trained up and we understand solar. So we want to we'd rather be in the party, than not on the door trying to get in with the solar. So we're there, and we're kind of, and there's still a lot of federal and bureaucratic involvement with solar, and that's kind of
for sure.
And that kind of, as soon as the government gets involved, they kind of mess everything up. So as soon as that kind of, and look, the fossil fuels and the renewable energy, global, conglomerates, they're going to fight for a while, right?
For a while. None of this stuff is going to come fast or as fast as we think, right? Like,
yeah. So we're on the solar thing, the PE thing. I mean, we're keeping our head on a swivel. We're going to remain aware, right? And kind of let this kind of happen for a little bit, just like a lot of these, R&D, we don't want to be first to market. We want to be best to market, right? So we don't want to be the first one to, sell our soul to the devil and jump in with PE before we've had a chance to see what these roll-ups really do and the challenges that, they're inevitably going to experience because they don't do roofing. The only guys that know roofing are the guys that run roofing companies, right? Or market for them, Jim, right? And the Latinos, I mean, we'll wait and see. Look, I mean, I think in the beginning, a lot of Latinos thought that Americans didn't want them here, but it's like, look, we don't care that Latinos are here in America. Just push all the same bullshit that we got to push. Pay your taxes. Get your insurance. Be a good member of the community. Right.
And you came from the subcontracting side. So it's like, that is it's always been a natural progression. Like if you came from subcontracting to move into the retail side of things, like it's a natural progression, and some people will make it and some people won't. And, there's always a problem to solve. It seems like you've been solving them for years. Last piece of advice that you would give to a roofing contractor, whether they're at 2 million or 20 million, what are your thoughts?
Know your numbers. Know your numbers. Like I said before, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or whether it's a loose leaf, a loose leaf book or whatever it is. Know your numbers. Don't get too hung up on goals, right? I think reaching a goal is a side effect of your behavior. I think if you show up on time and you do a good job and you make sure that you manage your cash flow the right way and treat people the right way and put on good roofs. Don't ever lose sight of, we're roofing contractors. It is our responsibility to put on good roofs. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, you're not a roofing company. You're a personal development company that just happens to do roofing. That's bullshit. We are a roofing company and we put on roofs. Now, can we help our people grow personally and professionally? Absolutely. But we are a roofing company first. And if you take care of people and you're honest and you're transparent and you take care of yourself and your team and you put on good roofs at the same time, and you're a good marketer, right? There's a lot of things, but I think it starts out with putting on good roofs and knowing your numbers and really sticking to some core values.
Awesome, man. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thank you for tuning into the Roofing Success Podcast. For more valuable content, visit roofingsuccesspodcast.com. While there, check out our sponsors for exclusive offers, shop for merchandise, and sign up for our newsletter for industry updates and tips. Also, join the Roofing Success Facebook group to connect with other professionals and stay updated on the latest trends. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. Your support helps us continue to bring you top industry insights. The website link is in the description. Thanks for listening.